Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Sheetal Thakur. Today, I will be discussing with you about the topic research designs and its types. To begin with, first of all, I will be discussing with you that what is the meaning of research design. So, research design is a set of advanced decisions that make up master plans specifying the methods and procedures for collecting and analyzing the needed information. So, basically, it is important for the good research design is basic rule of good research and the knowledge of needed research design allow advanced planning so that the project may be conducted in less time and typically at a cost savings due to efficiencies gained in pre-planning. Now we will be discussing that what are the objective of the research design. So basic objective of the research design is to gain background information and to develop hypotheses. And secondly, to measure the state of variables of interest. And thirdly, to test the hypothesis that specify the relationship between two or more variables. Now we will be discussing that why this is research design is so much important. So by conducting a research project, we learn that we may need additional research, which may result in using multiple research designs. And research design is very much important, and for that purpose, they have been classified into three types. First one is descriptive research design, second one is exploratory research design, and third one is experimental research design. So first of all, we'll be discussing about that what is the meaning of descriptive research design. So descriptive research design is basically a type of research that describes a population, situation, or phenomena that is being studied, and it basically focuses on answering the how, what, when, and where question in a research problem rather than why. So descriptive research design is a scientific method which involves observing and describing the behavior of a subject without influencing it in any way. Many scientific disciplines, especially social science and psychology, use this method to obtain a general overview of the subject. This is mainly because it is important to have proper understanding of what a research problem is about before investigating why it exists in a first place. Now we'll be discussing about that what is the nature of descriptive research design. So as far as the nature of this design is concerned, design is designed for investigator to gather information about present existing conditions. Descriptive research involves collection of data in order to test the hypothesis or to answer questions concerning the current status of a subject of the study. So descriptive study determines the reports the things how they are existing. It has no control over what is, and it can only measure what already exists. So basically, the aim of descriptive research is that the principal aim is to describe the nature of situation at it exists at a time of study and to explore the causes of a particular phenomena. So what we can say that this type of research seeks to tell what exists or what is about certain phenomena. Now, apart from this, descriptive research also gives us a deeper and better understanding of a phenomena. It defines the subject characteristics. It also helps to measure the changes in the data over some time through statistical methods. And descriptive research is also used to compare how different demographics respond to certain variables. For example, an organization may study how people with a different income level will be reacting to the launch of new Apple iPhone. So it also basically validate the existing condition, and descriptive research is conducted over some time to ascertain the changes observed at each point in time, and the higher the number of time it is conducted, the more authentic and conclusive it will be. So that is the basic importance of the descriptive research design. Now come that what are the advantages of this type of research design. So the subject is being observed in a completely natural and unchanged natural environments. So that is the first advantage of this type of design. And a good example of this would be an anthropologist who want to study a tribe without affecting their normal behavior in any way. In that situation, this type of research design will be followed by that researcher or adopted by him. Now we'll be discussing about that. What are the disadvantages of descriptive research design? The first disadvantage is that response may be not made by the subject, or they may be responding in biasness way. So respondent may either decide not to respond to the question or give incorrect responses if they feel the question are too confidential. So this is also one of the main drawback of this type of research design. Now we will be discussing about that what are the methods for collecting the data in under this type of research design. So basically they have three types of methods for collecting data. Number one is observational method, second one is case study method, and third one is survey method. So in case of observational method, it allows researchers to collect data based on their view of the behavior and characteristics of the respondent, with the respondent themselves not directly having any input. So that is the observational method. We are observing the subject. In case of study method, it is a sample group whose characteristics are used to describe the characteristics of a larger group, in which case study is a subgroup. And third one is survey method. So survey method generally used to obtain quick information directly from the primary source, and also conducting rigorous quantitative and qualitative research. So these are the basic methods through which data is collected in this type of research. Now we will be discussing about that what are the steps in conducting descriptive research. So first step is to identify the problem, thereafter review of the literature, thereafter select participants and instrument, and next one is collecting, validating the reliable data and analyzing the data, and thereafter the report conclusion will be drawn. So these are the steps. Now what we'll be discussing is about that descriptive research design is further can be classified into two types: cross-sectional studies and longitudinal studies. In case of cross-sectional studies, it is basically measuring the units from sample of the population at only one point of time. It also be referred as a sample surveys. It follows a high degree of structure in both data collection processes and instrument. And second type of research design of this type is longitudinal studies. In this type, basic main objective of longitudinal study is to observe the behavioral changes occurring over a period of time. It is also known as movies. Like movies, it is also known as a true panels, and these studies provide the same information at various specific points of time, repeatedly measuring the same sample units of population over a time period. And since they involve multiple measurements over a time, so they are often described as the movies of the population. And thereafter, we will be discussing about the second type of research design, that is exploratory research design. So in case of exploratory research design, from the heading itself is clear that we are exploring where a person is knowing nothing about the research problem. So it is usually conducted at the outset of the research projects. So in this type of research design, it is usually conducted when the researcher does not know much about the problems. It is not like exploration or detective work, which is fueled by curiosity. Researchers should use their instincts to find clues and venture into new territories in search of information. So flexibility is important in exploratory research, and it is bound to result in new ideas, revelations, and insight. Now comes that what are the uses of exploratory research. So as far as uses of exploratory research are concerned, it basically define an ambiguous problem more precisely, like why particular phenomena is existing in a particular time period, and it is used to gain a better understanding of an issue. It is used to generate new ideas like what one can do to improve particular situation. It is used to develop the hypothesis, and it is also used for providing insight like what political changes in international environmental are going to affect the business of a particular firm. So on all these platforms, this type of research design can be used. Now we'll be discussing about that what are the methods for collecting this data in this type of research design. So basically they are first one method is that primary research method. So primary research method is basically where the information is gathered directly from the subject. It can be through a group of people or even a individual also. So such research can be carried out directly by researcher himself. In this, survey methods, interviews, focus groups, and observation method is also used. And second type of method for collecting data and this type of research design is secondary research method. Basically, in this method, the information is gathered from previously published primary research, and in such a case, the researcher gather information from sources like case studies, magazines, newspapers, books, etc. So, literature research, case study research, and online research is also done under this type of methods. Now, we will be discussing about the advantages of exploratory research. So first advantage of exploratory research is that researcher has a lot of flexibility and he can adopt to changes as the research progresses. And it is basically usually a low cost, and it helps the foundation of it helps to lay the foundation of research also. And apart from this, this type of research design also enable the researcher to understand at early stage if the topic is worth investing the time or resources or not. But as far as the disadvantage of this type of research design is concerned, first disadvantage is that even though it can point you in the right direction toward what is the answer, but sometimes it is usually inconclusive in nature. The main disadvantage of this type of research is that they provide qualitative data, and interpretation of such information can be judgmental and biased. But in all, what we can say is that exploratory research is carried out when a topic needs to be understood in depth, especially if has not been done before. So that is the area where this type of research design is being adopted by the researcher. Now, what we will be discussing about the third type of research design, that is experimental research design. So in case of experimental research design, it is basically a blueprint of procedure that enable the researcher to test his hypothesis by reaching to a valid conclusion about relationship between independent and dependent variables. So experimental research designs are concerned with the examination of the effect of independent variables on the dependent variables, where the independent variable is manipulated through treatment or interventions, and the effect of these intervention is observed on the dependent variables. So in this type of research design, we are basically looking into the link of dependent variables and independent variables. So what steps are taken up by the researcher whenever he is opting this type of research design is that, first of all, he will be identifying and defining the problem. Thereafter, he will be formulating the hypothesis and reduce its consequences, and thereafter construct an experimental that represent all the elements, conditions, and relation to the consequences, and conduct of an experiment, compiling the raw data and reduce to the usable form, and thereafter applying the appropriate test of significance. And thereafter, now we'll be discussing about that what are the research essentials in this type of research design. First essentiality of this type of research design is that manipulation of independent variables. So all variables except dependent variables are held constant, and manipulation of dependent variable by the independent variable is observed. So that is the what is observed by the researcher. Thereafter, what we will be discussing is about the types of experimental research design. Basically, there are three types of experimental research design: pre-experimental research design, quasi-experimental, and true experimental research design. So in pre-experimental research design, this design is basically considered very weak, as researcher has little control over the research. Pre-experimental research designs are so named because they follow basic experimental steps, but fail to include a control group. In other words, what we can say that in this type of design, a single group is often studied, but no comparison between equivalent non-treatment group is made. Although very practical, experimental research is lacking in several areas of true experimental criteria. The pre-experimental research design is further divided into another subcategories. Now comes the second experimental design, that is quasi-experimental design. In this one, that do not properly control the effects of extraneous variables on our dependent variables. It basically allows researcher to evaluate the impact of independent variables under naturally occurring condition. And third type of research design is true experimental research design. These are those where the researchers have complete control over the extraneous variables and can predict confidently that the observed effect on the dependent variable is only due to the manipulation of dependent variables. So the true experimental research design must essentially consist of following characteristics. First of all, manipulation techniques should be there, which include the presence or absence of amount of technique, and there should be control group also. Randomization should also be there. So these are the steps which will be taken in case of this type of research design. Thereafter comes another question, that how valid are experiments? So an experiment is valid if the following are true. Number one, the observed change in the dependent variable is due to independent variable. And secondly, the results of experiment apply to the real world outside the experimental setting. So that is the thing, how we will be evaluating whether our these experiments are valid or not. So two forms of validity are used to assess the validity of experiment. Number one, internal validity. It is concerned with the extent to which the change in dependent variables is actually due to the change in independent variables. And secondly, external validity refers to the extent that relationship is observed between independent and dependent variable during the experiment is generalizable to the real world. Thereafter, we will be discussing about that what are the disadvantages of this experimental research design. First of this disadvantage is that it is highly prone to the human error due to its dependency on variable control, which may not be properly implemented. And another disadvantage is that it is time consuming process also, it is expensive also, and it is very risky and may have ethical compilation that cannot be ignored. So this is a common medical research where failed trials may lead to patient death. So that is also the ethical issue which will be one of the disadvantage. So experimental research results are not descriptive. That is also another disadvantage of this type of research design. So with this, we had completed this topic of research design and its types. So I hope you have understood till this point. So thank you for having a patient hearing.